As I make this video, we're literally a couple of weeks away from Apple announcing the latest range of their iPhones, which also means we're only about 3 weeks away from Apple finally releasing iOS 18 to the public. I've been using the developer beta of iOS 18 for a few months now, giving me hands-on experience with some of the new Apple Intelligence features. In this video, I want to highlight the 10 features of iOS 18 that I believe will significantly boost your productivity. If you're watching this before the release of iOS 18, which is probably around the 16th of September, consider this a preview of what's coming. But if you're watching this and you've updated, you'll be able to follow along. Now, Apple Intelligence is a bit controversial since it's only available on certain phones and initially just in the United States. I didn't want it to dominate this video, but it is hard to ignore. So I've included 6 features that don't rely on Apple Intelligence and 4 that do, and I'll cover those towards the end of the video. Okay, let's get into it. I'm a big fan of focus modes. I've made a number of videos about them here on the channel. Focus modes are where you can change the look and functionality of your phone depending on what you're doing. At its most basic level, you can have a work focus mode that you enable while you're at work. While the work focus mode is enabled, you might set some rules about who can contact you and which apps show notifications, but you can also choose what wallpaper you would like to have on the lock screen. In iOS 17, you no doubt already know that you have 2 lock screen widgets at the bottom of your lock screen. The one on the left enables your torch or flashlight. The one on the right quickly gets you to your camera. In iOS 18, you can change what these do, and you can do this on a per focus mode basis as well. So you could have it set up so that the functionality of these 2 buttons is completely different for your work focus mode versus your personal focus mode, for example. To do this, start by activating the focus mode that you want to customize. On your lock screen, tap and hold for a moment to enter the lock screen edit mode. Select Customize from the bottom of the screen, then tap on the lock screen again. You'll see minus buttons next to the lock screen widgets at the bottom. Tap the minus button for the widget that you want to remove. The button will be replaced with a plus icon. Tap the plus icon and you'll see a list of options that you can add to your lock screen widget. Or under the shortcut section, select Open App. From there, choose any app on your iPhone to assign as an app launcher to that lock screen widget. And just to show you that this really does work, I'm going to come out of the focus mode that I'm currently in and switch to another, and you'll see that the widgets at the bottom of the lock screen change accordingly. The Messages app now finally allows you to delay the sending of a message, just like you've been able to do with emails for quite a while now. So if you're heading home from work, for example, and you suddenly remember a text message that you need to fire off to somebody the next morning, instead of reminding yourself to come back the next day and write the text, just write the text straight away and then press the plus button to the left of the message composition screen. Choose Send Later, choose the next day, and the time that you would like it to send, and then hit the send button. And that's it. You don't need to think about it anymore. The message will automatically send at your chosen time the next day. If you want to amend the message between now and the time that it sends, you would tap and hold on the message and choose edit, or of course delete if you suddenly change your mind. Likewise, if you realize that you need to change the date and time that you want it to send, just tap the edit button next to the date and time stamp, and you'll be able to amend when the message is going to be sent. You now have a load of customization options for the control center in iOS 18, and while it looks impressive, it is also extremely useful from a productivity perspective. The control center often gets cluttered with items that I rarely use, making it hard to find what I actually need. In iOS 18, you can tap and hold the control center to enter edit mode. Each icon will display a minus button in the top left corner, allowing you to remove anything that you don't want. For instance, I never adjust the volume from the control center, so the first thing that I did was remove it from my personal phone. I use screen recording a lot because of what I do for a living, so one of the other things that I did straight away was use the little drag handle on the screen recording icon to expand it out and make it a more prominent button. If you then tap on Add a Control at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a variety of options to include in your control center. The section with the most customization options is the shortcut section. Here you can choose Open App, which lets you assign a specific app launcher to a tile in your control center. Or you can select Shortcuts to add any of the shortcuts that you've already created on your device, allowing you to launch them directly from the control center. This feature might not be something that you use all the time, but when you need it, it's a game changer. iOS 18 introduces the ability to create a Wi-Fi QR code in seconds. In the new dedicated passwords app, there is a section for Wi-Fi codes. When you open it, the Wi-Fi network that you're currently connected to appears at the top, followed by all the networks that your phone remembers. You can generate a QR code for any of these networks. Simply tap on the network of your choice, select Show Network QR Code, and a QR code is instantly created. Others can scan this code to quickly access your Wi-Fi. You can even screenshot and print these codes to have them handy around your home. That last tip can actually be really useful if you're traveling with your iPhone. Here's another great tip: download and use a VPN, like the one from Surfshark, who are sponsoring today's video. Booking hotels when you're traveling can be a nightmare, but even worse is learning that you're paying more than you should. Did you know that the exact same hotel stay can vary wildly in cost based on the region that you're accessing the booking site from? Clearly, you're not going to jet around the world just to log into a different country's internet. Thankfully, you don't have to. You just use a VPN like Surfshark, and you can price compare to your heart's content. It even works for flights, car rentals, pretty much anything that you need to book. And what about when you're away and you can't access the news or shopping websites that you enjoy at home because they're blocked, or watch your favorite shows on streaming because the local service has a different content library? Surfshark is available on all your devices, a couple of button taps, and you're surfing like you were back home again. But by far, my favorite feature of Surfshark is their new alternative ID feature. So here on YouTube, and to everyone who knows me, my name's Tom. But if I'm signing up for a newsletter, my name's Micah. And that's because Surfshark creates an alternative ID with a name, address, and email address that I can use when signing up for stuff online instead of my real details. It all redirects to my real email address. But the great thing is, if I decide I don't want the emails anymore, I just delete the fake email address and start again. And you get all of this along with industry-leading security and privacy, plus a 30-day money-back guarantee. If this sounds good to you, viewers of my channel can get an extra 4 months free with code SURFPHT and by following the link in the description of this video. iOS 18 brings with it integration between the Reminders app and the calendar, and while that might not sound like a big deal, when you actually start to use this, it's a bit of a game changer for productivity. So at its most basic level, you'll notice now that if you go into the calendar and you try to create a new event, you'll have the option at the top of the screen to create a reminder as well. This by itself is useful, but I've always found that the best way to use reminders on your iPhone is to integrate it with some of your other apps. For example, here I've got an email open, and let's say that I want to remember to action this email today at 4 p.m. The way that I would do this is by activating my voice assistant on my iPhone and saying, remind me about this today at 4 p.m. This creates a reminder for me. On iOS 17, that would have been the end of it. I'd have to go into the Reminders app to see and complete the reminder. But in iOS 18, the reminder now shows in my calendar as well as in the Reminders app. So if you're the kind of person who likes to block out your day in your calendar and work predominantly with it open, this is now an even more productive way of working. You can see all the tasks that you need to complete throughout the day at specific times and complete them directly from the calendar. One feature missing from the calendar app is the ability to tap on a corresponding email to jump back into the email itself. But there is a quick workaround. If you tap and hold on the reminder in calendar, a contextual menu appears. Tap the right arrow and choose Show in Reminders. This will display the reminder in the Reminders app, where you can tap the mail icon to view all of the necessary information. If you're the go-to tech support for your family's iPhones like I am, iOS 18 is about to make your life a lot easier. With the new SharePlay feature, you can now interact with the screen of the person that you're on a FaceTime call with by drawing and annotating. Plus, with their permission, you can take control of their iPhone and make any necessary changes. When you're on a FaceTime call, tap the share button at the top of the screen. You can either start sharing your screen or ask the other person to share theirs. Once screen sharing begins, the person that you're talking to can exit FaceTime and their screen will appear on your display. Tap to maximize it for a full screen view. By default, any swipes or drawings that you make will show up on their screen, making it really easy to guide them on which buttons to press. If you prefer to take control of the other person's phone, tap the remote control button in the bottom right corner of the screen. The person that you're on a FaceTime call with will be prompted to allow or deny access. Once they grant you access, you'll be able to swipe and tap on a remote control version of their screen on your phone, directly impacting their device. You can make any necessary changes, and when you're done, tap the remote control button in the bottom right corner to end the remote control session. At this point, you're still screen sharing, so you can either tap the screen share button at the top of the screen to end the session, or simply end the FaceTime call. By the way, if you prefer to have content like this in a written format, there's a PDF version of this video, complete with screenshots, and you can access it along with all other PDFs I've created, plus future ones, for just $5 a month, or by itself as a one-time payment. You can either scan the QR code that you can see on screen, or follow the link in the description of this video to learn more. So let's talk about some of the features that use Apple Intelligence. The first feature that I want to talk about is the voice note annotation feature, because this feature, when combined with Apple Intelligence, has been really useful for me. So the way that you would do this is you would create a new note in the Notes app, tap the paperclip icon in the menu bar, and choose Record Audio. You can then press the red record button to begin recording whatever it is that you want to record. At the most basic level, Apple Intelligence will annotate the recording while you're recording it, and after you've finished recording it, provide you with both a transcript of the recording and a summary. But where this gets really impressive is when you combine the transcription function with Apple Intelligence. For instance, I created a voice recording of jobs that I need to complete before I go on holiday. Most people would use the voice recording feature to quickly capture ideas. When you tap into the summary, you can then tap on the ellipsis menu at the top of the screen and choose Add Transcript to Note. This will add the text transcript into the note that you are writing. You can then tap on the selected text and use the writing tools by pressing the writing tools icon in the menu bar. For example, you could choose List to turn everything that you said into a list featuring just the main points. Or you could choose Table, which would give you a list of all the different tasks broken down by jobs inside the house versus jobs outside the house. It's a clever way to organize your disorganized thoughts. This next feature is also an Apple Intelligence exclusive, but it's a really useful feature from a productivity perspective, and that's why I wanted to include it. When you're on a phone call, you'll see a new option in the top left of the screen. Tap on this to begin recording the phone call that you're currently on. A prompt will play to let both you and the person at the other end know that the call is being recorded, but that's all you have to do. You would then just carry on with your call as usual. When you hang up, your phone will process the recording of the phone conversation using Apple Intelligence. The summary of the call is then automatically placed into a new note in your Notes app. When you view that note, you'll see a summary of the call, including the date, time, and duration. You can press play to listen to the entire call recording. Also, when you tap into the transcript, you'll see the full text with the device breaking it down by the different speakers on the call. Another Apple Intelligence related feature that may not look that exciting on paper, but is really useful when you actually start using it, is the Reduce Interruptions focus mode. If you have a device that's capable of running Apple Intelligence, you'd access this by going to Settings, then scrolling down and choosing Focus. In here, you'll see a brand new focus mode with the Apple Intelligence logo next to it called Reduce Interruptions. If you tap into this, you'll notice a toggle switch at the top, which is grayed out, and that's because you're not actually able to disable this as part of the Reduce Interruptions focus mode. I think this is more decorative. It's there to allow Apple to let you know what this focus mode does. Essentially, this will allow you to use AI to limit the number of interruptions that you get during the day, but also ensure that you know about anything that's important. So a practical example of this would be when you're creating focus modes the manual way. You might create a work one, for example, and when you do that, you might decide to silence anyone who isn't related to your work. So maybe your close friends and family members, you choose to silence any notifications that you receive from those people while you're at work. The problem, of course, is what if you get a text message from one of those people asking you to call them urgently or letting you know that an appointment time has changed? There is a real likelihood with the way that focus modes work at the moment that you would miss that. Reduce Interruptions would intelligently figure out that the message that you've received, even though it's from someone that you usually wouldn't want to receive a message from while you're at work, is important, and it will show it on the screen with a reason for why it thinks it should be included. It might say maybe important, for example, and will then give you a summary of that particular message. This feature has been a real game changer for me in the time that I've been using iOS 18. One of my biggest complaints about focus modes on the iPhone is that they take too much time to set up and they're too awkward to edit once you've set them up. I really like the fact that now, essentially, I've got two ways of using my phone. I either enable Reduce Interruptions while I'm at work, or I disable it when I'm finished. So this is the last Apple Intelligence feature that I wanted to talk about, and that's all of the enhancements that have been added to Mail. And there's still a complete redesign of the Mail app coming soon that nobody's been able to test yet, which includes automatic email categorization. Even without that feature, These updates are really impressive. So the first thing that you'll notice when you open your inbox is a priority inbox created automatically by Apple Intelligence. This feature uses your phone's knowledge of your received emails to determine which ones are most important for you to see immediately. And in my experience, this has been really accurate. But the next thing that you'll notice are these summaries for the emails. And the great thing about these summaries is that they show up here in your inbox. So in many cases, you don't even need to tap into the email itself to read it. You can see everything that you need right away from here in the inbox. Of course, when you do tap into an actual email, you can scroll up to the top and you can tap the summarize button to get a summary of either the email that you've received, or in the case of an email thread, you can get a summary of the entire email thread. And again, my experience is that this is getting increasingly more accurate the more that I use Apple Intelligence on my phone. So there you go. Those are what I think are the most exciting productivity enhancements coming in iOS 18 in just a couple of weeks' time. What do you think? Which of these features do you think you're going to get the most use out of? Drop me a comment and let me know. And as ever, if you found this video useful, do please consider leaving me a like and subscribing to my channel for more content like this in the future. See you on the next video.